It's about history. It's about preservation. It's about sense of place here on Eastern Long Island. With Esperanza Leon, I'm Irwin Levy, and this is Our Hamptons. Esperanza, good morning.
Hello, Irwin.
You know, Esperanza, as well as I know you, come to think of it, I don't know if I've ever actually asked you this question, but I'm actually going to ask it to you now. Were you ever really into going to yard sales?
No.
Okay.
But I just wasn't that person who was going to get the paper and circle the addresses and research it and lay it all out. No, I would just go, oh, there's a yard sale, and maybe stop and do that. But yeah.
Yet another, that was a dramatic pause. Yet another excellent Esperanza Leon segue, because getting the paper, circling those things, that's sort of the road we're going to go down on. And we have a very special guest today that I'm going to introduce. But first, to Our Hamptons podcast audience, this episode is really about, Esperanza, this is really a part of, we talk about the fabric of the East End. This was a culture. And I use the term was.
I still have things. I mean,
Exactly.
We all do.
So our episode is really about East End yard sales. Whether or not I call this the decline and fall of them is another story. But right now we're going to call it...
wait, the renaming of them.
Or the renaming of them. Okay, very good. But I'm going to bring out a very special guest who was probably for a 10-year period, Esperanza, my yard sale wife. So without further ado, I am going to bring out a dear friend, Sheril Antonio. Good morning and welcome, Sheril.
Good morning to you both. I don't know if people can tell from my voice, but I have the biggest smile on my face because you two occupy such a wonderful part of my life out here for the entire time I've been here. So it's really great to be with you.
Well, thank you.
Oh, it's so cool. It's so cool because I did meet you, I think, through Irwin. I'm not, yeah. So, and then, with the gallery and everything, and it's just amazing, these connections that are maintained.
Yeah.
And it always feels the same when we get together.
Correct.
No question. And I'm going to give our Hamptons podcast audience just a background, because Sheril is incredibly modest and would never do this on her own. But this is Dr. Sheril Antonio. Okay. She basically runs NYU. Okay. She's been a dean at the film school. She's a professor. She's a writer. Her background is in film. She could be a podcast, the Sheril Antonio story, single-handedly on its own, but that's not why we have Sheril here. We have Sheril here, and Esperanza, I really should tell you, I met Sheril because Sheril and her partner Rachel actually rented the house next door to mine, and the first day we met them, she and Rachel came walking down our driveway. And I'm going to paraphrase this, Esperanza, for you. I turned to my wife, Rachel, and said, what's their story? What do they have to sell? But of course they came over because they were very neighborly and just wanted to introduce themselves. And that was really the storyline. But
that is called a community-minded person.
Thank you.
She was. And I have to be honest. Esperanza, we're brutally honest on Our Hamptons podcast. That was my first reaction was, what are these two selling? What's this all about?
What do they want?
Yeah. Well, I probably said, and believe me, I'm from Queens. I probably
there was profanity involved.
Yeah, they were probably, but we keep it clean on Our Hamptons. But anyway, Sheril obviously and Rachel became really good friends of ours. But Esperanza, the relationship was almost more than that, because we both found this very profound lane together. And Sheril, right? I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
how did it start? Like, did one day I just say, "Hey, I'm going to a yard sale. You want to come?" I mean, I don't
Yeah,
really
who
remember
started
that.
this? Who
Oh,
started?
for sure, for sure, for sure, Irwin. One of the when Irwin spoke about how we met, what comes to my heart is just the fullness of how much I've gotten from the relationship, including the place I live in now. Irwin, as a lover of a place, took us by the hand. So it started with tours, Irwin. You showed us your Hamptons, like literally would drive us around.
Oh my
And
God,
it
you're
was,
right.
yeah, that's how it started.
That's
So maybe
incredible.
the first year was tours. Um, and then we got into the yard sales. I'm most likely we passed one and stopped, and but you're always inviting. You invited me to, I would say, everything, into the Hamptons, into the art scene, into the yard sales, and I think that's how it started, from
I,
tours.
I think that's exactly right. And Esperanza, I mean, Cheryl and I used to go to your gallery all the time, if
Yes,
you recall,
yes, yeah.
right? I mean,
Yep.
and it was really funny because when I say she was my yard sale wife, my own wife never went on a yard sale, So Cheryl really became my yard sale wife.
But
And
everybody knew us together. If those people saw one of us alone, they'd be like, "Where's your husband? Where's your?"
that's it's really true. And Esperanza, and I have to say, it's like really weird saying this because, right, Esperanza, people sometimes associate us together, right?
That's
Like that,
exactly, yes.
right?
I was just going to say, we had a name for it.
Now, yeah, I mean that's great. People would write, maybe you and Esperanza want to come. I said,
Yeah.
I can't speak for what Esperanza does or doesn't do, but it was really funny. And Cheryl, people did make that
Yeah,
association with you and I
yeah.
also. And if I
Cheryl,
ever,
I'm beginning to get jealous here, in sort of
Ooh.
retroactively jealous. Yeah.
Look, Irwin's got a full heart. I mean, he look how many
Has space forever.
exactly how many
Yes.
people he has a space for. Let's just acknowledge, though, he has incredible taste.
Also, yes,
definitely, definitely,
exactly.
definitely, yeah, in both my own real life wife and my Yarden and podcasting wives. Yes, I do. Yeah, very true. Boy, that's a reality show right there. But anyway, we really have to get in. Cheryl, we really have to get into the whole thing of yard sale, and it really has to be said. Now, remember, it's sort of like looking for houses 30 years ago. Yard sales 20 years ago were a very different animal. There were no iPhones to direct us to where to
No.
go. Okay, yeah, maybe we had a Garmin GPS that was probably $500 at the time, 20 years ago. And we should give a timeline. Cheryl and I really did this when Cheryl moved next door, which was circa Esperanza 2002. So we're
Hmm.
Correct.
going back really right after I met you, which was
Yes,
sort of in that
yes.
same
Yeah,
era,
it's around the same time. Exactly.
around the same time. Now, we would pick up an East Hampton store or dance papers, but really the store was the Bible of yard sales, right? So we would take a highlighter or
Hmm.
take a pen. We would, to what Esperanza started this conversation off with, we would circle these things. And then, Cheryl, we would take out a physical map, like a yellow book or something
But
that
I
doesn't
wasn't
exist
I
anymore.
wasn't wrong. I mean, you really
No,
did.
it was the free yellow book, because I still have a couple of the maps that we haven't marked up.
Yeah, I mean, so we took a yellow. I mean, then there were times, Esperanza, I'm telling you, we would literally highlight the map like it was like an AAA triptych, if you remember those. Another thing that doesn't exist anymore because who
Uh,
needs it? So we actually mapped out a route. And I'm telling you, this was a Saturday morning ritual, right, Cheryl?
and
Was,
tell
but
me, what was it? How many hours would you spend doing this
well,
Saturday
I was
morning?
just going to say,
You have
Irwin,
to be there early. I mean,
exactly,
you were
but not too
probably the
early.
early birds.
But not too early.
That's right. That's
Remember,
right.
Irwin, some
You didn't
people,
get there before they opened the
Well,
yard sale.
Esperanza, yeah, there would be ads like in these yard sales. And sometimes it was almost not always tongue in cheek, like early birds will be shot. Like literally,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So and we're going to get into this as we get into really the meat and potatoes of Yarden, how it was the cast of characters, because it was real. It really was a tour. But so we did map out this route, and to Cheryl's point, and I mean, we really should touch on this. Like Sheril and I, this relationship, we would start out, it did start out with tours.
Yep.
And I think what Sheril is implying here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sheril, like, uh, no, it wasn't about going to further lane and looking at the houses behind the hedges. We were going to the real, we were going to Lazy Point, or we were going, by Sammy's, or we were going into Maidstone Park, sections of Sag Harbor, stuff, that was a little bit more, especially then, authentic.
Well, that's really an important point because when I started coming out here a very long time ago in the 80s, I just wanted, working as Dean of Film and Television, I traveled a lot and I just wanted to drive 2 hours. And um, I love the ocean, I love farm, I love country. And this place was for me. And the place that I fell in love with by the time I could afford it was disappearing.
Right.
Farms, that kind of uh, place, Long Island. I refrain from calling it the Hamptons, even though I'm on the Hamptons podcast, because that gives a certain,
Right.
tilt these days. But Irwin showed me that place that I had fallen in love with, but didn't know where it was. And so it had an emotional resonance. And Esperanza Irwin, you don't even know how much effort he put into mapping. He knew areas. It was about we go here, then we go there, then we go there. There was a time limit because they wouldn't let you in early, but then after a certain point, there was a ton of traffic.
Mm.
And he had an incredible sense of how to get the most efficient and the most joy from the process without sitting in traffic. So, and I just felt really, blessed to be getting this incredible tour. And somebody like thought out, it was like back in the day when American Express used to plan your tours abroad.
Right.
And on Long Island, I had Irwin planning my tours of the
That,
Hamptons.
that's a very funny point. And Esperanza, you actually asked a question, and I don't think we really addressed it. Like, how long did we do this for? In terms of, no, this was not a day long event. Like,
No.
there was a
Like
sweet
8 to
spot. It was
12? I don't know. Yeah.
I would say, Cheryl, if I'm going to guesstimate it, if I look back, I would say it was really 90 minutes to two
Yep.
hours we devoted.
Yep.
Like this was not, we
Oh,
didn't go
amazing.
out at 8 and go stay out till 2 in the afternoon. This was
No.
like a
Yep.
finite,
Yep.
because we had a lot. Remember, I mean, Esperanza, at this time, I was a weekender.
Yep.
I
Your
wasn't,
time was limited.
my
Yeah.
time was limited. I had a full-time job, a full-time, and then some. I mean, like I had to squeeze a lot in the 2 days I was here. We were coming out Friday night, literally, and going back Sunday night. So, I mean, there
Right.
was really,
Sunday night around 5:30.
that's right. I mean, so there was really right out, we'd have an early dinner and then we would leave. But Cheryl touches on something, and that's really an important point. Going on these tours and exploring these areas were such an essential part of it. And yes, we tended to stay more within a local circle, but we did often expand our horizons. We would go to Southampton, but it wouldn't be Southampton, not Southampton Village, not the estate section. It would really be more North Sea, and also like Noyak. Those kind of the northern elements. It was just, I use the word authentic, but it was just real, and some of the people we encountered like became part of it. And especially as they sort of recognized us, and the people on the tour, because Cheryl, there was a definite tour. We recognized the dealers, right? It should be
Oh,
said.
that was rough.
Yeah. Esperanza, there were professionals out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Like either they were, they owned antique stores or
Yeah.
but we knew who they were.
And they
Okay.
probably knew who you were at this, like you're saying, right? At a
Exactly.
certain
And,
point.
we sort of gave them the evil eye, like, right.
They were like the vultures.
Yeah, they were just, they were,
They had a different vibe. They had a business vibe. There was no, limber, casual joy, banter. It was different.
right. And
Business, very business. Yeah.
very, very business. And, they were very business. And, Cheryl and I were really about, Esperanza, I do have to tell you this, like how, and Cheryl, I remember this so vividly. Cheryl had a specific wallet that she used for yards. She's laughing right now because she knows what I'm going to say. Esperanza, she had a specific wallet. The wallet was, I swear to you, it was a Ziploc bag, and it was marked Yarden.
Yarden.
Yarden. Let me make Yardin.
Apostrophe.
There were no G's. It was Yarden.
It had lots of single dollars.
And that
And that was your budget, right? Like you had your Yarden budget.
That really was a budget in Esperanza. Thank you for that. That was a great reminder, because very often on these yard sales, we would see people literally as if they just came out of an ATM. They'd buy a $3 item with 100. I mean, we would see this, or a 50. And I always said to Sheril, it's about small bills, especially when we get down to the negotiation.
Oh my gosh, you had it down to a science, clearly. There was a clear methodology here.
Right?
And you had it perfected. Both of
oh my gosh.
And if you look at the items we bought, Irwin, it was also a nostalgia, I mean, which is maybe even the tone of your podcast, that things from the past. And I remember, Irwin, on one, first of all, I'm a city girl.
Right.
Half of the thing I bought, I didn't know what it was. It just looked pretty. And there was this, and I still have it, and I mounted it in a frame, a kind of
like a shadow box.
Yeah, shadow box frame, and I took the glass out. And it was this evil, wicked little pitchfork with like little things where, if you stick it in, you got what you got because you can't pull it out. And it was rusted beyond belief. And I was just so fascinated by this little thing. And the guy, I remember him telling me, I dug this up in the yard when I was, renovating. And I'm like, what is it? And, a whole bunch of us were talking. Turns out it was an eel fork.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I still have it. I was looking at it when I was upstairs. And so all these things I discovered tools from these either found or craftspeople, or it was so cool.
I mean, Esperanza, that is such an important point Sheril just made, because part of this, and really it can't be expressed enough. We learned about the culture, bonnet culture, in a large extent from these sales. Sheril talks about an eel fork, because she calls herself a city girl, which she is. What did she know from an eel fork? But a bonneter knows what an eel fork is from the time they're 2 or 3 years old.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, and you made me think of. I mean, Irwin, you have that wall of implements. I'm sure these Yarden experiences added to that extensively. And, I have given you a couple of things, without you having to come and give me a couple of bucks for that.
That is very true. And I'm another, Sheril, as you could see, I think, God knows, this would probably be by the time we release this, episode number 90, whatever. So Esperanza continues to feed me these unbelievable segues, but you're right. Like, if you asked me what my incentive was at a yard sale, it would be anything old East Hampton, anything old East End. And I did create, and I'll post this on Instagram when this episode airs, I have a wall of implements that literally is all predominantly objects from relating to the East End. Part at yard sales, what Esperanza is referring to is Esperanza, her mom, knowing I had this kind of interest. I mean, I have yardsticks from old stores in East Hampton with a 516 in front of the 324.
Yep.
Because that's what, right? So that's really what it's about. But, Sheril, I remember some of the specific things that happened on yard sales, and I'm going to spring on you and see if you remember. And I want to share this with Esperanza and with our audience, because I think you'll remember. Sheril and I once went to I remember where it was. I remember it like it was yesterday. apparently as I get older, Esperanza, it's my short-term memory that's failing. My longer term seems to be a little stronger. Um, but Cheryl and I went to a yard sale on Church Lane in Springs. And let's see if Cheryl remembers this story. And this is hanging on my wall of implements,
Oh boy.
where I bought an ammo belt.
Oh God.
Okay, let's see if Cheryl remembers
I
this.
passed that house on my way to Oshawott Hall, and I remember exactly that
Oh,
story.
okay, so Esperanza, so I bought an ammo belt, and like this was from really, I mean, this was, I don't know who they were, but I mean, you could tell this was a local family, Bonnock family, and so much of this was the experiences of Yarden was the interaction
Yes.
with the proprietors.
Yes.
So much of it. And you got to remember, like, first of all, Cheryl and I were like the odd couple walking up. I mean, if you saw us standing next to each other, it's like, it's like this is like Mutt and Jeff, these two, but so anyway,
You got to post a picture of
well,
us,
we'll post a picture when the time comes so our audience can
of
see.
the two of us together.
Yeah, exactly. But so I bought this ammo belt for whatever, Esperanza, probably $2, $3. It might have been a negotiation from 5 because that was part of it. It was, no matter what, you had to do a little of that, and they expected it, and it's all done with a smile, I guess, unless you're the dealer. But I said, "Wow, this ammo belt is really cool." I said to the guy, I said, "Boy," and then I like looked at Cheryl and I said, "Wow, it's a shame there were no bullets for it." And the proprietor said, "Let me go in the house and get you a few."
Yes, and they're in there now.
And they're in there now. Like those kind of stories. I went with, I'm honestly not positive.
But so he threw in the bullets. I mean,
Yes.
threw in
you
the
haggled
bullets.
and he threw in the bullets.
Well, the haggling was just part of the shtick,
Talk
Oh,
about
sure.
authentic, man.
right? I mean, but like that was just part of it. And I also remember, and this was at a barn off of Springs Fireplace Road, randomly lying on the floor, Esperanza, just on the floor. The guy was emptying a barn. And Cheryl, don't worry, we're going to get to the Barry story after this. Um, was a matchbook. I think I once showed this to you, Esperanza, that said
Yep.
Jungle Pete's.
Yep.
Yes.
And I saw it
yes.
on the floor. And now you
I've
got to
seen the
remember, like,
picture. That's amazing.
yeah. And now you got to remember, like, this was like, I'm not exaggerating here, okay? It's like my heart was pounding. I'm saying,
No,
oh,
I get it. Listen, I found one lying somewhere in our house from Bohax. I understand the
right. It was such a
of
connection.
something so small.
Yeah,
I found a calendar with my actual birthday on it, which is leap year.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, wow. That's
Which is, I mean, a physical calendar. But Irwin, you said floor. Now, do you remember we had a specific box on the floor?
Oh my gosh, I don't.
Irwin, and once, let me tell you, I
Oh,
thought I had the science down. And then Irwin created a different Yarden level, the box on the floor.
that's right.
Because these people, it's like the lowest in the supermarket is the cheapest. The box on the floor became my go-to when yeah.
it's like the sale rack.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I haven't thought about that
The
term.
box on the floor.
And Esperanza, meaning it was about the box on the floor. And there was a Yarden culture. I don't care what anyone says. Okay, the box on the floor is exactly as Cheryl described. It was sort of, yeah, they're putting out their higher quality items on the table.
Oh yeah.
Right? But this was, honey, get that junk from the
Empty the
basement.
junk drawer. Yeah.
Just turn the junk drawer over and throw it in the box, and that box would be on the floor. And to Cheryl's point, Esperanza, that box on the floor was the gold.
Yep.
That was the gold. Okay. And Esperanza, like we said, the proprietors, the places we'd go down. I'm telling you, these memories are coming back. Peconic Bay Avenue off of Noyak Road. I mean, with the house is probably gone now, but it was one of these just old cottages right on Peconic Bay, and with the warmest, most welcoming family. because Cheryl, there were times during Yarden that we would end up at one house. We try to be productive, chop chop. Hey, we have
Yep,
eight
yep.
houses to get to. Unless you ran into someone like a family on Peconic Bay Avenue where they they would tell the stories behind what they were selling, right? And it was
Yeah.
just
Or my favorite, for some reason, I don't know why I thought this was in Sag Harbor, but the guy who was picking up stuff that his wife put in the yard sale that he wanted to keep.
right,
Oh my
You know,
gosh, that happened to me. We had a yard sale and my family was doing that too.
right. That
no, because everybody had a different attitude about what was
Yeah,
going on the table.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, they like right. I mean, what's junk to one person, even within the same household, is of sentimental value to another, and I do recall things like that happening, and or like after it was already purchased, one of the sellers almost lamenting the fact.
Mm,
Um,
I've had that too. Yes.
yeah,
Seller's
and
regret.
yeah, exactly. And Esperanza, I should also say, and Cheryl sent me a couple of these. Um, we actually, from our own accumulation, we once we once turned the tables and went from the yard sale tour to being a yard sale proprietor and yard sale. We created our own yard sale predominantly from things we already bought and had to
Right.
relinquish.
You had to de-access.
But so here's the thing about Yarden. You get your first pass is you get a bunch of stuff that you think is the coolest on earth. 2 years later, you're like, whoa, this is even cooler. And so then you start like swapping out, like, I'll show you when we're done, my very expensive bookcase with about $30 worth of yard sale stuff on it. But like you get these scoops, right? And then you find the scoop with the broken handle or the missing handle or the cracked handle.
Right.
Then you find the scoop with the full wooden handle
That's right.
and some of the enamel still on it. So you start to create a hierarchy of your own stuff, right?
Abs-
Well,
exactly.
it's actually a really amazing way to train your eye and your aesthetic and learn, you just have said it. You not only discover neighborhoods, learn about new places, meet interesting people, but you are also kind of tuning your aesthetic and learning as you go. Oh, here's the scoop, but this scoop the next year, this one's even better than this one I got last year, and you're really fine tuning it every time. You're learning more.
Yeah. And also, I think, for me, history,
Yeah.
the tradespeople, the folks what were the tools like? So planes were one of my favorite items to collect, lanterns. I was really just so interested and of course, on the other end, I would tour these old houses, and then you would see these things in their place, or a barometer, right? Or,
Right.
stuff that you understood the past IRL in real life, right? Talking to someone. I should also just note, on a sort of sentimental, very sentimental, how safe I felt with Irwin. I'm a Black woman. I'm not just going to roll up on a yard sale. I don't know how they feel about Black people. And having Irwin with me was a kind of safety blanket, especially around the people with the bullets. Um, but I'm also so nostalgic about that because I thought about it. And the reason I thought about it was because when I first started coming out here, I asked people where would I physically feel more comfortable in the 80s? And they said Sag Harbor because it's such a mixed community and it's an arts community. And East Hampton was new to me. And, there weren't a lot of Black people around the way there were in Sag Harbor. So for me, this had a whole nother cultural side, right? And I came to just understand physically, to learn physically, and I tell people experience is the best education.
Yeah.
And so I was getting a whole nother thing that I don't even know if I discussed with you, Irwin.
Yeah, racial component, I certainly, I understand, but it was almost like, what you're saying right now is Yarden was the backdrop for a much bigger picture in
Yeah.
a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Again, things were we're sort of touching on, just the connection. Esperanza was mentioning this earlier, the connection to history, the connection to community, something Esperanza and I certainly talk about all the time, and this was part of it. Yarden had its own community,
Yeah.
and there was you connected with that community and with that culture, and it's almost we almost we almost are segueing into this naturally, but to sort of bring it into where we are going today. And I mean, I realize we didn't touch on some of the really cool stories of.
Wait, I'm waiting to hear about Barry.
All right, we do have to mention Barry, and I think he had a business. I'm not sure if he's still out here, but I think he had a business he was like somebody that would like empty houses when houses were sold, transferred, and a lot of times he had some of these sales, and those sales were golden. And I have a picture in my house. We should tell this story, Sheril, of how it came out of Barry had it at his yard sale. I bought it from him, and got it from there was a store in East Hampton, Esperanza. I'm sure you'll remember, called Springer's on
Yes.
Newtown Lane. I think it was a men's store, a clothing store, whatever. But they had all of these big, beautiful, dry-mounted black and white photographs in the store. I remember the store. The store was
Huge.
and he happened to have one of these, and we bought it. I bought it, and we put it on the roof of Cheryl's car.
Because it
Didn't have
was
any,
huge.
and it was big. We didn't have anything to tie it down with, so
You
Cheryl,
were holding it.
she was driving with one hand, her left hand holding it down, and I was on the other side, literally with both hands out the window, holding it down on the roof, and it was flopping. Luckily, Barry was only a couple of miles away off a 3 Mile Harbor Road, so it wasn't too long a ride. But we laughed the entire way back,
We did, and it was flopping too.
and
I
it was
mean,
flopping.
it moves around in the wind.
But
Irwin had a tiny car then. I think was it a convertible?
geez, I don't even remember it. But
Wow, I think yeah, you had a tiny car.
oh,
Anyway,
I think it was actually with your car. I think it was with you had a
yeah.
Volkswagen Jetta, a
Yeah,
Volkswagen Jetta. I think you
that
had.
was my car.
But I
Yeah.
mean, I'm telling you, I was leaning out the window. I mean, I was holding this thing down. I mean, if I could have fallen out of the car and broken my neck for all for the $20 thing that still hangs in my house. I have to tell you, and I know we have to start. We could go on for this for hours, but I know we have to start winding it down a little. But I will also tell you my most expensive yard sale purchase, Esperanza. Um, I'm pretty sure Cheryl was with me because I very rarely cheated on Cheryl and went alone. But I remember where it was. I bought it on Miller Lane East or Miller Lane West, if I'm not mistaken. It was a Chamber of Commerce table from the 50s, and that it
Yeah.
had all
Yep.
East Hampton, Amagansett, Montauk businesses that actually, I guess, paid for a slot. And I mean,
Oh,
the
wow.
craziest, yeah, like, Epstein's Clothiers on Main Street in East Hampton, Adolph C. Inn on the Napeague Strip. I mean, like really crazy businesses, names, TV repair shops. I mean, like really from days gone by. I remember showing it to Hugh King, the town historian, and he said, wow, this was a find. I remember him saying. So, yeah, they were really,
And wait, how much?
it was the most expensive yard sale purchase in my yard and
Which
career, Esperanza.
means
It was $50.
I was gonna say.
It was $50. You know,
My Yarden wallet never had $50.
as a matter of fact,
Oh,
Esperanza, it might have been the kind of things. Since hey, I didn't walk around with that kind of cash, I might have had to like put down a deposit, go home and get the
and go
money.
home and get it. Right,
Yeah,
right. Or like, wait, I have my checkbook in the car.
yeah, exactly, yeah, exactly. Oh,
Will
can I
you
give you
take
this?
a personal check?
Yeah, will you take this post-dated third party check? But you
Well,
know,
could I ask? I mean, I think
please.
this is where you might be going with this, but I everywhere I see, and I think the pace that you were describing right now, driving home with the flopping photograph on top of the roof of the car, made me think, well, there was like a different pace on a Saturday morning that it's just slower and people weren't in a hurry to get anywhere. And, there's still a little bit of that, but you get on 27, it's like, crazy in the summer. It's too much, it's
Right.
frenetic. And I don't think that doesn't seem like the pace that I am envisioning with what you are
No,
describing.
no. Yeah.
But I
No.
just, what I have seen instead of yard sale, I mean, you still see garage sale, yard sale, a little bit here and there. I see more estate sale. And that's why I said earlier when we began, I said the name change. Like,
Yep.
since when do we have to be like, this is the luxury market? We have to now call it an estate
Uh,
sale.
this is,
Jeez, what a drag.
and this is Cheryl. I'm warning you now. We're now going to descend into the more somber Our Hamptons podcast
No
because this is
somber.
well, but this is
The end of an era.
this is Tesperanza.
Yeah.
This is the point I really do want to make. Again, what I'm going to say is not scientific in any way, but it seems to me that again, I remember that East Hampton Star, especially like around holiday weekends, summer. I'm not saying 6 or 8 sales. I'm telling you there were 30 listings.
30. Yeah.
Tremendous numbers. Okay. Same thing with the Southampton Press. And we did venture into Southampton many a time. To your point, Esperanza, not the Southampton where we had to go to 27, Noyak Road, North Sea. In there more where we weave through Sag Harbor because we weren't really dealing much with 27. I do remember that also, Cheryl.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, and this is again to frame this whole thing metaphorically. If there has been a decline in Yarden as we know, is it also the decline of not just Yarden culture, but the disappearance of bonnet culture as houses are sold? It touches on so many themes we've spoken about a million times. We've all seen the small 2 or 3 bedroom house knocked down and something supersized take its place, which of course limits that home as a rental property. And I don't want to go too deep in the weeds here, but limits that home as a rental property or as a potential first home for a local family, as it's now marketed, even on what we can call secondary streets, to primarily second homeowners, what have you. So it's part of the fabric of this place has changed.
Yeah, and there's, I think, I'm thinking as you speak about this cult of the new, everything has to be new. And I think rather than, even though I know, and there's a generation that, is in middle school, high school right now, they love going thrifting.
Right.
But the thrifting is, the LVIS as Gucci, I mean, it's not exactly
Right.
the thrifting of my generation. But that said, I feel as if it's all about it's convenience. And so rather than having a yard sale, you might do the estate sale. Or I think most people, when these homes that you're just describing now, they are going to be demolished, everything just goes in a dumpster, which
Yes.
breaks my heart.
Yeah.
How many treasures may not have, just disappeared into a landfill because of the laziness of people, because of their convenience mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely what I miss seeing. It's also a generational shift. It's a financial shift. I remember when I was next to Irwin, talking to some of the folks who I didn't know they were, I didn't know what Banneker was, and I came to understand it, but they were also being priced out of the area. And so, if you inherit a house that you can't afford to keep, and you lose that generational footing and you lose those trades, because a lot of, again, going back to the nostalgia, tools have changed. I'm not that excited about today's tool.
Right. Right.
I'm not that excited about, I mean, oh my gosh, the pre-tape measure, right? And so I think we lost that generation. Then you had the economic shift of people. And, Irwin, I do remember some yard sales just having really modern stuff, not
Right. That too. And, I do want to address something Esperanza said, which has to be said. even Cheryl, in our era of
Yeah.
doing this, of
Yeah.
2002 to 2012, Esperanza, there were, quote, estate sales. There were, quote, professional sales being done during this time. Probably it's more prevalent now, but those things did exist, and they would
Sure.
advertise them within the yard sale classifieds.
Yeah, no,
You
that
know,
and that, yeah, that always existed. We
they
have
they
things
they
from estate sales also. That's not something that,
exactly. But I will tell you,
a
and
different element.
exactly, and Cheryl, correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm not knocking those at all, but those were not the sales we ever stopped at. We
No,
weren't we weren't interested
no.
because for us, and I mean, I think we'll to start wrapping this all up, as painful as it is, because I love talking about it. Um, it was about so much more than just the items,
Yes.
and so
Yeah,
much more.
there was
We
an
get
aura. I bet you're thinking there's like an aura around each object and just the whole experience.
Cheryl. It was like a mystique almost.
But who own you? You're getting this belonged to this family, maybe a grandparent. There was so much. I'm full. I write, but there are no words to express the kind of visceral, because it was a multi-sensorial experience. Heart, mind, learning, feeling. I mean, Esperanza. Just going back to both of our trades. If you walked into a home and looked at the art, you know something about people, right? When you go to a yard sale and you look at their stuff, you know something. In film, they call that the decorative correlative, right? How do you learn about the character from looking at how they have their space arranged and organized? I mean, there was, and again, IRL, right? In real life, sensorial, experiential. That's what I miss. But the learning, the good news is, even though it's a thing of the past, I have the memories and the objects and the experiences. They stayed with me and they changed me and still give me a sense of place, even though it's modernized as it is now.
Oh my gosh, gosh! I got to
You
tell you,
rendered Irwin speechless.
that is that was poetry, Cheryl.
It
I mean,
was.
that was really,
It's passion and
but
love.
it
Yeah.
but it really was. I mean, Esperanza, I always try to come up, like when we close an episode, with some sort of real solid close. I mean, that was a close. I mean, and like that, but that's really, I can never express it as eloquently as Cheryl just did. But
Right.
that
It
really was,
encapsulates it, right? Yeah.
that's really what it was. It was of a time. It was a connection to a time, to a place. Was it through? Was the it was it through the object? Yeah, because for all the reasons Cheryl just said, that was their grandpappies, maybe, or
Right.
whatever.
It's the object, but it's the people. It's sort of like an archaeological perspective, anthropological
Yes.
perspective. The place is not just the place. The place is about the people, and the object is not the object alone. The object is about the people. So
Yep.
Oh my gosh, more
Yep.
poetry.
Yep.
I look, I can't add anything further to that. And Cheryl Antonio, you
Cheryl, I
were
want you back on this
what an unbelievable. I mean, honestly, I
podcast.
knew she would
Can we
be. I
talk
mean,
about something else?
On the
I mean,
scene. I'm on the scene. I'm tagging along with Irwin. I'm still working like a fiend, so time is, but I'm making more time for new memories, new excursions. But Irwin, you say you don't have anything more to add, but really, you created that incredible space and you were a guide. And that's, the you created so much learning for me, certainly, and so much experience for me. And we talked about the stories, who invites you to their home today, really?
yeah,
I mean, you think about the yard sale. Someone's inviting you into their home, into their life, into their past, into their history.
right, right.
Look at where that's happening or not.
Right. There's that vulnerability that does not seems not to exist anymore, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Esperanza, how many episodes of Our Hamptons have we touched on that theme? How, you used to scrape your knee and knock, you knock on the door of the house nearest you if you
Right.
lived in Sands or you lived in Leisure-Rama. And now everybody's gated and privated.
Right.
So,
Yes.
I mean,
Cheryl and Rachel wouldn't have been able to come up
that's
their driveway.
exactly
but I wouldn't today, right?
right.
Right. You would feel there's a barrier. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. Which is such a
it's in
shame
the
that
air. It's in the air.
we're at that point, and I'm hoping that we can backpedal this
Yeah.
a little bit.
To wrap this up, yeah, maybe this episode was sort of about Yarden, but uh, like all
So
of
much
our like all of our Hamptons podcasts, right? It ends up being about a hell of a lot more than that.
Yep.
Sheril Antonio, what a phenomenal guest you were.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Our audience, I think, is going to love this episode. And Esperanza, as always, a pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you both. This has really brought so much joy and warmth to my heart today.
Right back at you.
Wonderful.
Thanks so much for joining us. New episodes of Our Hamptons are released every other Tuesday. Find them wherever you get your podcasts.